on Libya.
There are ways to agree and still be critical. You can agree with the president's drone policies and still point out the hypocrisy of some on the left now suddenly being okay with Obama's foreign policy.
But here's the thing, Essie.
It would have been a tricky road.
Sure.
And I understand why he
didn't
do it, but I wanted
way
to see
too
it.
tricky. And I think Mitt Romney looked at all the polls that we've seen, and that this election is not going to be won or lost on foreign policy issues.
Right.
And when the two clips that you offered up, Afghanistan and the second one was drone strikes, not only did it follow Obama around the ring, it follows popular opinion that America's war weary. They don't want to get more deeply involved in the Middle East. They're not following, unfortunately, the green on blue attacks in Afghanistan. On drone strikes, not a lot of Americans were, shedding a tear for Anwar al-Awlaki to be taken out by a drone strike. So for Mitt Romney to try to create these sort of, small distinctions or these, finer points, I think would have bogged him down, and that his larger goal.
Absolutely right, and this strategy was probably a safe one. I think we can all express some frustration that the
we
media
love red meat.
that the media hasn't brought these issues to the president on a more consistent basis, if at all. So if this was our only opportunity to have someone press the president on it, Bob Schieffer didn't do it and Mitt Romney didn't do it, so there's a bit of frustration. But that said, there was another overarching criticism of Obama. And again, I thought he made a ton of claims that were very easily argued, and Romney didn't take those moments. I don't know if you guys caught this, but at one point he was criticizing Mitt Romney's foreign policy as being out of the 1980s. Later, he criticized Mitt Romney's foreign policy as being informed by George Bush. And then finally, he criticized Mitt Romney's foreign policy as being informed by Barack Obama. So Mitt Romney's foreign policy has spanned 3 presidents in 3 decades, and yet still is somehow congruous to the president. One last thing I want to bring up to the table is this gender gap poll. We put together 3 different recent polls, one from the Washington Times, Zogby, University of Connecticut, and another from Politico GW. Look at this gender gap. Obama is running the table among women, and Mitt Romney is running the table among men. And those are pretty big gaps between them. What do you think the debates have done from the first one, the collapse for Obama, to this last foreign policy one, and then the 2 in between, to widen this gender gap?
Well, earlier polling showed that it was actually narrowing the gender gap. USA Today had a poll out October 15th, and in fact, swing states, women were pushing Romney into the lead, and Celinda Lake, a Democratic pollster, she said that what Romney accomplished in that first debate was that women went into the debate actively disliking Romney, and they came out thinking he might understand their lives.
Well, Romney's closed that gap among women, but it's widened among men.
Right, so
well, it may be closing, but it's still a stark divider, right?
That's always been the case.
It has always been the case, Amy, and that's interesting, but we spend so much time talking about the Latino vote or the black vote or the vote according to different income classes, but when you break this down, and the Wall Street Journal has done this, and apply men and women to every single one of those groups, that seems to be the stark divider. The women vote, maybe not just President Obama, but Democratic, and men vote Mitt Romney/Republican. It's just really fascinating to think men and women have very, very different visions of this country.
Well, it's actually not
so
that
different, Will Kane. We're women. We're at this table.
It's not that unprecedented, actually. If you look at 1980, 1996, and 2000, we saw actually very similar gaps, about 20 points between men and women when you put the two together. And Nate Silver posits this idea that women, not only do they tend to be Democratic, but they also tend to favor the incumbent. They want to give the incumbent or the incumbent's party a second shot. So in 2004,
the underdog.
I guess Romney trying to be likable, which is really last night. I don't think he was trying to be likable. I think he was just trying to be pretty mellow and not get into a huge fight over.
I think women saw over these debates that he is actually kind of likable.
And women apparently
why
don't
isn't that
like
reflected
fights
in these numbers we're seeing?
Right.
Though,
Well,
that was
I
just
think
last night,
that's
though, Buck,
surprising.
and I think you're right. That was a play to the women.
Maybe the war on women stuff has finally started to gain some traction. The Democrat side, I would think that that's possibly why we're seeing this.
Remember a while ago we talked about that Pew study. It's a 30-year trend, this gender gap, and the I think most important point of that study was that women are increasingly more comfortable with big government solutions. We talked about this. I think that is exactly what you're seeing, and we've talked about this. Right. Obama has found a way to make big government cool, and women seem increasingly comfortable asking big government to help them out.